going on, guys? Welcome back to all of our subscribers. Love you guys, appreciate you. If you are new here, my name is Mark, and last year my wife Donna and I bought a Sprinter van to chase our dreams of traveling across the United States. Now, if you've seen our previous videos, you know that we immediately took the van on a trip to Georgia to kind of test it out and get to know the van, which went really well. But that was 7 months ago. I was back in July of last year. So I felt like I need to get on here and give y'all guys an update on what's going on right now as of January 2023. So first off, as you can probably see, Donna is not in this video, but she will be returning next week, so do not worry. And second off, as you can probably see, we're still in our house, not in the van yet. But it is completely empty in here, so sorry if there is an echo, but we just got done minimizing, selling, and donating pretty much all of our belongings, other than what we're gonna take into the van. Which was not easy, by the way, because you don't realize how attached to stuff you get until you try to get rid of it. I'll never forget you. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. But after we did it, it actually feels really good to like declutter and free yourself from that, because at the end of the day, it's just stuff. Anyways, update on where we are right now. Our house is listed for sale. It went on the market about a week ago. We haven't had any serious offers yet, but we're hoping, you know, maybe in the next month or so that we can sell it. And then once we do, we will move into the van full time. Now, in anticipation of that move, we have been working on getting the van ready for full-time living. Fortunately, when we bought the van, it was already pre-converted by the previous owner, so that gave us a really good starting point, but it was more so designed for like weekend trips and not really designed for full-time living, which is what we need it for. So we spent the last 7 months customizing and upgrading the van to fit our needs, which is what this video is about. Now, originally I'd planned to do individual videos of each of our van build projects, kind of going into detail on how we did them. But the more I thought about it, I want our channel to be more of like a travel and adventure lifestyle channel rather than like a how-to guide. So I decided to just do 1 or 2 videos kind of combining all the projects we've done, just to get you guys caught up and let you know where we are at with the van. So without further ado, let's get into van build video number 1. Oh, and real quick, I gotta give a huge shout out to my dad, who helped us so much with this van build. We literally could not have done this without him. So if you're watching, Dad, thank you and we love you. Now, if you watched our first trip in the van to Georgia, then you saw that we discovered a leak in our kitchen sink's drain trap. So fixing this was our first priority. We figured this would be a super easy fix since we just needed to replace the part that was leaking, right? Yeah, no. What we found, however, is that the drain trap that was on the sink had been cut in half, sliced down, and glued back together again. We were really confused as to why this was done until we bought a new one and installed it and realized that our fridge, which sits directly below our sink, would no longer fit. So yeah, it turns out the previous owner realized this and therefore cut a chunk of the drain trap out, glued it back together, that way it would fit above the fridge, which works really well for getting it to fit, but probably explains why it was leaking. So at this point, we had already replaced the trap and didn't want to cut it down again and have the same issue. So we came to the conclusion that we needed to raise our entire countertop and sink in order to create clearance. Basically, we unscrewed and detached the counter from the base and then cut some wood strips to place below the counter and raise it up about 1 inch. We used glue and nails to hold it together and then reattach the counter back onto these wood strips using some angle brackets. To cover up the strips of wood, we then bought some white paneling and glued that on top to hide the gap. And I think it came out pretty good. After doing this, the fridge now fit back below the sink. Barely, but it did fit, and our leak was fixed. Next up was probably our biggest project, which was to completely redo our van's electrical system. Now, when we bought the van, it already had solar panels installed on the roof, as well as a small battery bank, which worked but had limited capacity and struggled to power larger devices such as a microwave or air conditioner. We actually completely drained our battery bank during our first trip to Georgia, so we realized pretty quickly it needed to be upgraded. We spent several weeks just researching different types of batteries, charge controllers, and inverters, as well as how to install and wire everything together. And we quickly realized that where our battery currently was housed, which was under a couch, was not going to be a big enough space to house all of the new batteries and components. So we went to work on redesigning the garage area of our van to make room for everything. Now, unfortunately, that meant the batteries needed to sit right where our pull-out sliding tray currently was in the back of the van. This tray also ran directly next to the wall where we planned to mount everything, which would have gotten in the way. But we really liked the functionality and usefulness of this tray, so rather than getting rid of it completely, we decided to modify it. Pretty much we removed the tray and then cut a few inches off of the width so that our inverter and charge controllers would have space to mount. We also built a new frame for it to sit on using 2x4s and angle brackets, which raised it off the floor by about a foot, making room for the batteries underneath. We then installed a plywood wall on the side of our van to mount everything to, and I'm super happy with how it came out because it allowed us to keep the tray and gave us a 2-tier storage area in the back. At this point, all of our new batteries and components had arrived in the mail, so we went to work on wiring and installing everything together. Now, going into this, I had zero electrical experience, so this was a huge learning curve. But fortunately, my dad does have a lot of prior electrical experience and was able to guide me in how to correctly wire everything. This project ended up taking several weeks because we had to cut and lug all of our own wires, mount all of the components, and just figure out how to run and connect all the wiring throughout the camper, which was not easy because it was already pre-built. But even though it was a lot of work, it was a great learning experience, and I now feel way more confident that if something breaks in the future, I'll now know how to fix it, which is a huge plus. For those of you who are interested in the details of our electrical install, we ended up putting in 4 200 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries. This gave us a total of 800 amp hours, which is probably a bit of overkill because that's a huge battery bank, but I'd rather have extra power than not enough, especially since I have a lot of camera gear, drones, and laptops to charge, and I just don't ever want to have to worry about running out. We also installed a Giandel 3000 watt inverter to power all of our AC outlets, and we use a Victron solar charge controller as well as a Victron DC to DC charge controller connected to our alternator. This allowed us to charge our batteries from our 300 watts of solar panels on the roof, as well as anytime we're driving. Previous owner also had installed a Powermax charge controller, which allows us to hook up to shore power at campsites. We kept this in since we already had it, but honestly, I don't think we're gonna use it much because we plan to mostly be camping off-grid. Last, we installed a Victron battery monitor just to keep track of our battery levels and battery temperature. In total, we probably spent close to 10 grand on electrical, and between planning and installing everything, it took about 2 months of work. But I think it'll be totally worth it once we are on the road full time. And so far it has worked amazing, and we haven't even come close to draining our batteries. Now that we had a bigger battery bank, we were also able to take advantage of this extra power and replace our propane stovetop in the van with an electric induction cooktop. But we just weren't super keen on the idea of traveling around with a large propane tank in the van due to safety reasons. Plus, by getting rid of the propane, it opened up more storage under our cabinet. And when you're living in a tiny van, every inch of storage space is vital. As far as the install, it was fairly straightforward. We pretty much just removed the old stovetop, and then we did have to cut a larger hole in our counter since the induction stove was slightly larger. After that, we just dropped the new stove in and mounted it to the counter using angle brackets. And there was actually no wiring needed since it just plugs in using an AC outlet, which we had already installed when we redid the electrical. Overall, I love the way it looks as it's way sleeker than the previous stovetop, and it works amazing. Next up was our toilet. Now, originally the van had a Thetford porta potty style toilet, which on our first trip, we found we did not really like. One, it's not easy to dump at all and just super messy.
A little bit of splash.
We'll just leave it at that. Plus it uses this nasty blue chemical stuff to wash everything down, and we just wanted something easier and more natural. So we did some research and decided to go with an airhead composting toilet. Now these are not particularly cheap, but this toilet uses composting material to break down waste, which makes it way more environmentally friendly and just a lot easier to dispose of your waste. So far, we've been very happy with it. Installing it, however, was a bit of a challenge because it needs to be vented to the outside of the van and also hooked up to electricity in order for the fan to run. This fan allows airflow out of the toilet, which helps it compost correctly, and also vents any smells to the outside of the van, just to keep our home smelling nice. So in order to do that, we had to cut some holes in both our van exterior wall as well as our shower wall to vent the hose out. After cutting the holes with a hole saw, we then mounted a vent, which we ordered from Amazon, to the outside wall. This just helps keep rain out and also covers the hole up. Next, we ran the vent hosing from the toilet through the shower wall and into the fan on the outside wall. Then we just wired the fan into our battery bank to run continuously and covered the hole in the wall up with some paneling. Finally, we screwed the toilet mounts down onto these teak wood slats that we bought from Amazon. And this had two purposes. One, it just looks really nice, and two, it allows us to secure the toilet down without drilling holes through our shower floor, which can open up opportunities for leaks. And voila, just like that, we had a brand new composting toilet. Now at this point it was December and we now had a hugely upgraded electrical system, we had a new composting toilet, and we had fixed our leak. And although there were still some upgrades left to make, we felt it was time to take another short test trip to try everything out. So we planned a short trip down to South Florida in the Everglades, and that vlog will be coming next week. Which I think means this is a good stopping point for today's video, but we will have one more van build video coming after our Everglades vlog, so if you're interested in this stuff, stay tuned. Hopefully this helped catch you guys up some though, and if you're not already, we would appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe, because we will be posting weekly videos every Sunday documenting our van build and travels. Hopefully we will see you all next week though, and until next time, stay wild.